just enough for the city. It's hard work, some days for 14 hours. And we're back. This is Peter Van Dyke in for Greg Russell, and we have members of the Land and Waterworks Coalition in studio with us for the next hour and a half. They are holding a summit on March 21st at the Charles H. Wright Museum for African American History. More information at www.detroitfuturecity.com. And we have another and new guest, another coalition member represented in the studio with us today, Khalil Ligan of the Alliance for Great Lakes. She's a community sustainability planner. And real quickly, Khalil, do you want to give us a quick overview of your role with the Alliance for the Great Lakes and your role with the Land and Waterworks Coalition?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me today. One of the really exciting things about being a part of this monumental event that's happening in the city of Detroit around stormwater infrastructure is really having a platform to share the ideas that we've been cultivating for many years now. They're starting to take center stage. And what the Alliance has been doing for many years has been centered around protection of the Great Lakes. This is one of the world's greatest freshwater sources, and we sit right in the middle of it. And that's a phenomenal place for the city of Detroit to be. And we focused our work and efforts around policy advocacy, which means the creation of laws and policies that protect the Great Lakes, and education opportunities where we give the public a chance to learn more about roles they can play in protecting this water resource, and learning more about how they relate to the water resource as well. And then finally, working in the planning sphere when we're looking at place-based planning initiatives that help to protect that water resource, increase stewardship in the public realm. And it's been really exciting to build that work here in Detroit over the past 3 years.
That's great. And we have a couple of callers we're going to go to in just a few seconds. Before we do that, we want to have Sarah from Detroit Future City just provide a little de-jargonizing of the land of water, of all the water jargon that makes a lot of sense to you guys, but maybe not to all of our listeners, including myself. So let's first talk about green stormwater infrastructure.
Yeah.
If we can demystify that for a minute, it'd be great.
Yeah, Peter, so the story for green stormwater infrastructure really begins when you think back to what Southeast Michigan used to look like before it was a city, right? There were prairies and forests, and that landscape managed the rainwater where it fell. But now that we have an urban environment, Detroit is 42% impervious, which is hard surfaces, buildings, parking lots, streets. All that water has to go somewhere, and where it goes is down the catch basin to our combined sewer overflows, to our combined sewer system. And so that combines with anything that leaves anything that drains out of your building, your sink, your toilet, industrial waste. And so, as Irma mentioned, when we have periods of heavy storm events, sometimes that can overload the system. And so what green stormwater infrastructure does is it basically captures that rainwater runoff before it enters the sewer system. And so we use things like rain gardens, cisterns, rain barrels, bioswales, and permeable paving that really captures the stormwater and either allows it to soak into the ground or holds onto it for a period of time and slowly releases it to the sewer system at a time when it's not so overloaded. So that way you get less discharges into our rivers.
Right. So let's take Rick in Detroit's questions. He's been waiting for almost 10 minutes. And for those who want to call in, again, the number is 313-778-7600, and we are here to answer all your questions about land and water in Detroit, or most of them at least. But Rick in Detroit, what questions do you have or comments do you have for the team here with the Land and Waterworks Coalition?
Good afternoon. I wanted to bring up, and I'm wondering if others have experienced the same thing. Here with the rainwater tax, which was a very sudden tax, as you know, a lot of people were upset. A lot of people still upset. Nonprofits still complaining. Have worked with a couple of businesses that have an acre to several acres of land. Have looked at some of the costs to create that water catch system, to create that green space, and even to test some of the water runoff. Those costs are tremendous. So certainly, I'm sure an industry could be developed around that if people are spending what, the cost that we've gotten. My thing is, in light of that emphasis and how much it is costing the average business person, to stay in business. Do you think that some more planning maybe should have went into the transitioning and, changeover piece? Because it can be very sudden. And at the same time, we hear from the White House things like allowing more coal, loosening air quality requirements. Yet on the other hand, here, this is a big tax. $760 plus, an acre, just up out of the clear blue sky. In one business, that the water bill was $37 a month. Suddenly it became $900. That kind of a situation, somewhat leaves me thinking, are we doing a lot of damage with that? Are we building a lot of resistance? As you know, it was just recently a class action lawsuit won against the city of Detroit's water department for $29 million. Because of how they did that. And, I think that, a lot of the things that you say make perfect sense. I'm pro-clean environment. But at the same time, I have also seen the damage, economic hardship that it has brought on people who have had to pay this right after a 2 or 3 year period of telling people to buy lots and to buy land in the city. And then they buy these things near their churches and businesses. And then suddenly they're hit with these broad, rainwater taxes. And that part, with every place that you went, the same thing. And then there's this debate about, impervious surfaces and what that is. And it seems to vary from person to person sometimes.
So, Rick, if we can...
real hard stuff follows.
Yeah,
So, yeah. And last thing, I know that you guys are, effective, lobbyists for the Greenpeace and the infrastructure. But I tell you, I'm with May3.com, and I'm talking to these businesses and churches about this water stuff. And, man, they're not excited about these rapid costs.
Yep, these are all great questions, Rick, and I think some of them we can maybe answer a little bit later specific to some of the charges. But what we can talk about with the team that's in the studio right now is what will be talked about at the Land and Water Works Summit, which will help in the future possibly eliminate some of these costs. And so, Sarah, if you can talk about some of the key things that residents will be learning at the Land and Water Works Summit, and how installation of green stormwater infrastructure, one, what is the cost to install it for the average resident?
Yeah.
And two, how, by installing it, how does that help eliminate some of these costs in the future?
And, just to respond a little bit to the caller's comments, I think we are seeing a shift in Detroit in how people view land use and how people value land. And so, like I said, Detroit is 42% impervious surface. And so maybe property owners are starting to rethink, how much parking space do I actually need? Do I need 3 lots full of parking? And so, so land use is changing. But at the Land and Water Works Summit, so it's open to the public, it's free, and we have, as we mentioned, 5 speakers, national and local, and it's really going to be a place for residents to come and learn best practices from around the country, Philadelphia, and as Mark from Philadelphia Water Department spoke about, they have been down this road, and they are, about 10 years ahead of us down this journey of installing large-scale green stormwater infrastructure. We also have Laura Solano, who is a principal at the landscape architecture firm Michael Van Valkenburg and Associates. And so they're going to show us some really great examples of really beautiful public spaces that incorporate green stormwater infrastructure.
Great, Nicole, I know you have some questions for Khalil here. So what kind of things has Detroit Future City brought the Alliance for the Great Lakes to the table for this coalition to do?
Yeah, well, so Khalil is really coming to the table with us as being one of our local experts at this summit and really being able to share some of the best practices that they've been able to develop over the years and interacting and engaging with our residents, with the City of Detroit residents, and really driving for this conversation around green stormwater infrastructure. So Khalil, can you talk about some of the activities that the Alliance has been able to do with our residents and really giving them the tools and equipping them to become land and water stewards.
Absolutely. One of the things that we have focused on is that communities really have what it takes in terms of expertise through the lived experience to give us the guidance we need to create the solutions that we've been discussing today and that we'll discuss at the summit. One of the things that we've been doing over the past year and a half is engaging various residents and community stakeholders that are within the Connor Creek Greenway corridor. Now, the Connor Creek Greenway is an 8.5-mile trail that courses along Connor. A historic creek is underneath that road, and that goes from the city of Warren all the way to the Detroit River. And so in those communities, in those neighborhoods that are adjacent and within that corridor, you're talking about expansive opportunities to leverage what we're already doing by creating these recreational trails, if you will, where people can walk and bike. Those are opportunities to use land for a recreational purpose, to connect people to our water resource in a positive way. Because the reality is there have been so many traumatic interactions with water in Detroit in the past years. And we're trying to create a new narrative that water can be a positive thing for us again. It doesn't have to just be a traumatic experience relating to flooding and water shut off and lack of access and water, impurities and quality issues. Those have been dominating the narrative. And so the work that we're doing is saying, hey, you live next to this phenomenal trail. What if it could also address some of these other issues related to water infrastructure in your community? And if so, how would you want to see that done? So as a planner, of course, I come with a skill set and a series of expertise to know how to create a technical analysis and plan for these things. But my personal planning philosophy has always been that the people in place are the experts, and to defer to them and engage them in authentic conversation around what's best for their neighborhood, what's best for their community. And so we've been able to do that. And the work that we've been doing has already highlighted over 30 sites along this trail that can manage stormwater. And so that management of stormwater also has benefits to the community that they've elevated over 10 different design goals, if you will. So basically the community says to us that if you build this green infrastructure, or more simply, nature-based infrastructure where we use natural elements to address when heavy rains fall on the landscape, where does that water go? So letting nature kind of do its job again is the most simple way to characterize green infrastructure or green stormwater infrastructure. At any rate, the residents say, hey, if you're going to address flooding, that's great. That's one of our primary concerns. Can you also deal with areas of beautification? Can you also deal with elements of community safety that are needed, increasing safety for bicyclists and pedestrians? And so we're looking at this corridor almost as a testing ground, if you will. There are a number of greenways planned for the city of Detroit. You have the Joe Louis Greenway coming online, the Iron Bell Trail, which will connect multiple Great Lakes states, and the DeQuinder Cut, which is already